All right, you ready?
I guess.
All right, I've got my one-time use lubricated monocle. Words About Literature is an eloquently spoken podcast. I am, of course, Lord Nathaniel Creed, and I am joined by my co-host, Sir Benjamin. How's it going? Or how is it going?
Are contractions not posh?
Not posh enough.
It's going well. We did not discuss this persona before we started recording, and so I'm not sure where it's coming from or why.
Well, because today we're discussing the literary titan, Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills, a real author and definitely not Aaron Egoraptor Hansen in a wig and makeup.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, how long are we going to pretend that's a real thing? Yeah, to really talk about the book. You can't pretend he's Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills the whole time. So I guess we should probably talk about the bit and Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills.
Yeah, take it away. I heard that his book, Cerberus from On High, was going to change literature forever, but then there was a tragic warehouse fire that destroyed all the copies. And then Dr. Mills, he disappeared for almost a decade.
Yeah, so I guess the first I saw of this book was, well, I guess, oh boy, we're just going to have quite the about the author for this one, but that's okay because it's a short book. How far back do we start? Well, a long time ago, for our younger listeners, there was a website which is like an app, but you have to access it through a browser. And the website was called newgrounds.com.
Oh, wow, we're going way back.
Yeah. And on newgrounds.com, people would post a lot of videos and animations and Flash cartoons. Flash was a product that was used for animation.
Yeah, it's no longer around.
I don't even think Flash is around anymore. So, yeah. Basically, there was a guy named Aaron Hansen who went under the moniker Egoraptor, who made funny Flash cartoons on Newgrounds. And I would go ahead and say they kind of hold up if you're into it.
I did not realize that they were the same person for a while, that the Newgrounds guy was also the guy on Game Grumps, but yeah.
Did you just now realize that?
No, not just now.
Okay.
Years ago. But when I first started watching them, I didn't quite put it together.
He moved on from that to a Let's Play. Now, a Let's Play was a thing where... I'm just discussing the whole history of the internet, but I know for a fact there are people listening to this show who do not know what these things are. So, a Let's Play is a video format for internet videos, almost always on YouTube, where people play a game and they record the footage of the game they're playing and they talk over it. Sometimes with another person, sometimes podcast style, but there used to be a lot of these.
Yeah, it used to be the main thing on YouTube, I feel like. Or one of them, yeah.
Especially back when YouTube first started, when videos had to be 10 minutes long. I think that's more conducive to this sort of format, but very few of them remain, but there are still a few big ones that do remain, like Game Grumps and Markiplier. And I'm sure there's a third.
PewDiePie?
Does he do that?
He did that at one point. I don't know if he does anymore. I never really watched him, so...
Literally never seen a PewDiePie video.
I'm
kind of proud of that.
envy you.
Yeah.
I envy you, sir.
Yeah, I have no idea what that guy does other than... no, he wasn't the one that made an ass of himself in Japan. That was a
I
different
think he's
one.
made an ass of himself in general, but no, he was not. That was, who's that douchebag who does, I think he does boxing now?
Paul.
Logan
Paul. That's his name. or Jake Paul. Which one's the big one?
Logan Paul. I just looked it up.
There we go. Yeah. So, I don't know. I might not be the best one to talk about internet culture. But anyway, Let's Plays were that...
Because internet culture is a trash fire.
Anyway, Let's Plays were a big thing. And like I said, a few of the best ones live on. And of course, arguably the most popular is Game Grumps. And that was started initially by Aaron Egoraptor Hansen, while he was still kind of doing animations at the same time, and a guy named JonTron, who I can't stand.
It's one of those things where you can never go back.
I never was into it at the time it was big. That's part of the problem, I think, for me. I do like Game Grumps in small doses. So the way Game Grumps presents itself to me is a Let's Play / improv show.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And unfortunately, they do 30 minutes to an hour a day. I don't know if they're still doing 2 episodes a day, but they're doing long videos. And eventually, you start to run out of material.
Yes. Thank you.
And I always said that they should use more editing, not less.
Oh my
because
God.
I remember watching them play Mario Maker 2.
I gotta interrupt you. I'm sorry. This is the rare Words About Books moment where, like, I want to hug you because we are on the same page. Because, like, I was afraid that I was like totally off base on this one because I was like not super impressed with Game Grumps, and I shouldn't even say that because they do a good show and they have a good product, but like. It's like I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. There's just so much of it that isn't the gems.
Yes. Well, there's an episode of Super Mario Maker 2 where they played a level for like 30 minutes and they made no progress on the actual game. And also, there wasn't any like good or compelling story. And I was just like, you could have just cut this whole thing. Like... You didn't need to post this. This didn't need to be an episode.
There's so much of that. Like I don't know their audience, and I don't really dig the Let's Play format. There's a few I'm interested in from the perspective of actually watching someone play a game. Like I've watched a lot of Bloodborne Let's Plays because I'm very specifically interested in the way Bloodborne tells a story through its gameplay. And I've played it several times and I've watched other people play it. So that's like a weird quirk I have. And I know Let's Plays are more for other people than they're for me. I wonder how much of the appeal to their audience is watching them play the game versus them riffing on the game. The game is kind of like the conversation starter, but the game is not the point. The conversations sparked by the game are the point, and they're supposed to be kind of funny and
I stopped watching when they started playing Zelda Majora's Mask. They kept shitting on the game for not telling them what to do, but in reality it was telling them what to do, and they just weren't paying attention because they were talking about whatever the hell they were talking about, so they didn't know where to go, and they assumed it was the game's fault, and I was like, this is frustrating me to watch now. I realized then, like, I don't think this has been for me for a long time, and, like, maybe I stopped watching. They've had a few Let's Plays I really like.
Their playthrough of Doki Doki Literature Club is, I would say, like, peak Game Grumps. I really enjoyed that. But that's, I mean, you know I'm a weird horror guy, so
right.
I was going to enjoy that. But that was one where it was a good setup because, like, I think Aaron knew the story and Danny had no idea, and Danny thought it was just a dating sim. Aaron is constantly trying to, like, not give it away, and you as the audience are waiting for it to turn, and when it finally does, Danny's reaction does not disappoint. And that's the kind of stuff, like, they do still produce gold, but it's like you said, if you're in it for 2 episodes a day, they're not all going to be good. They can't all be great. I mean,
I feel like any more rare times I watch, which I think it's been like I go for the compilations of all their... It's just a super cut of all their best stuff.
I think I probably like them more than you do. I guess we should probably mention the co-host, Dan, because I'm just going to breeze past John Tron.
I don't know what happened there. There's a lot of speculation. And then Dan came on.
The reason I'm bringing all this up, I should mention, is that I don't know to what extent the people in the Game Grumps empire...
That's probably a fair word for it.
I don't know to what extent they contributed to the book, if at all, because of the conceit of Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills. So, real quick, Danny is half of a musical duo known as Ninja Sex Party that does comedy songs and covers of old 80s songs, and they're pretty good. Check them out. That's Game Grumps. Game Grumps is super successful, so successful that Aaron Hansen was able to turn it into its own company, and I imagine it is very profitable because he has since spun it off into other ventures. He owns a touring company.
How did they relate to Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills?
One day, as I'm scrolling through my YouTube feed, I see a new video posted on the Game Grumps channel, and it is an interview with Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills. And I click it. And it is... It took me longer than I care to admit to realize that it was Aaron interviewing Aaron.
I'm sorry to hear that. I realized immediately.
I didn't realize immediately. I was looking at it for a second. I was like, that's him in a wig.
Yeah.
It's edited together really well. And the story here is that Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills is Aaron's uncle, his mother's brother, and he has written a new young adult book. And Aaron's mother has coerced him into promoting the book with his vast Game Grumps empire. And Aaron hates his uncle, and his uncle is kind of a jerk. And the interview is one of my favorite things they've ever done. I don't really want to describe it to you. I think you should go watch it if you have any interest in this book at all. But it's just... like, if that's all they ever did, I'd love Game Grumps.
Right. I'll agree with that.
So, as the interview goes on, that's where we find out that the character of Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills that I assume Aaron has invented. So this is part of the thing. They've never really broken character. They've never really dropped the kayfabe to say what is actually going on behind the scenes. So Aaron is certainly the face of this book, both as, himself and Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills. Does that mean he wrote it? I don't know. So the character of Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills is presented as this highly academic, highly serious author of literature. Not genre fiction, not young adult fiction, literary fiction. The great American novel type stuff. This is the kind of guy who, meticulously studies Finnegan's Wake for 60 years. The story goes that Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills' magnum opus, a book known as Cerberus from on High, was printed and then immediately destroyed, bankrupting his publisher. And since then, he has not been able to get any of his literary works published, and the only thing anyone will accept from him is a young adult novel. But he is not interested in young adults, he knows nothing of young adults, and he does not respect young adults. So he has written what he thinks young adults will enjoy, and
he has gambling debts that he needs to pay off.
Cecil H.H. Mills, not having known a child in a very long time, when he heard young adult book, he wrote what he remembered as a child, and that was a parody of the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys mystery novels. That is how we wind up with the Ghost Hunters Adventure Club. Would you agree with me that at the very least, Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills is the fourth main character?
Yes, for sure. He shows up in his own book.
His own chapter, which I absolutely love.
he narrates the audible version.
That is one thing I wanted to talk about, because in the interview, Aaron mentioned something like, Uncle, maybe you know anybody who would want to work on that audiobook for you, maybe like a nephew who's trying to be an aspiring voice actor, trying to get more work, build his resume. And Cecil H.H. Mills just shuts him down and decides to read the book himself. So I guess what I want to ask you, and one of the key puzzles of this book, how meta is it? Did Aaron write it? Did Aaron write it on his own?
I think he wrote it. I can't say for sure that he wrote it on his own.
Why did he write it? So don't get me wrong. I'm glad he did.
Right. I guess I'm just going to start by saying I really liked this book.
Yes, I liked it. I will say I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
There's no weird sexual assault partway through that just turns you off on it. It's a really great book.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, that was boy. It was nice.
It was the winner of the Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills Fan Society Award for Excellence.
I would love to know more about the behind the scenes of this book. I would love to know if Aaron actually wrote it. It certainly sounds like his voice. If you're familiar with his stuff on Game Grumps, if you're familiar with the stuff he wrote for his Flash cartoons, in places he really comes through. In the character of Cecil H.H. Mills, I'm positive he wrote most, if not everything, for Cecil H.H. Mills.
Right, for sure.
It is published as a, quote, Game Grumps novel. And so I wondered if other people in the company played a role in writing it. Like, did they do it maybe like a TV show script where there was a writer's room and they sort of discussed it? And if that's the case, it's so bizarre to me that they just decided to write a book.
They want to get that sweet, sweet book money, Ben.
Yeah, of which...
How is that so hard to understand?
Well, I guess because the more you know about publishing, the more you know that there is no sweet, sweet book money. That they might have turned a decent profit on it based on their reputation, but like...
It might also be like, it's on my bucket list to write a book and publish a book.
That could well be. That could well be.
That could be it. I know it was on my bucket list, and mission accomplished.
Yes, done. Never need to do that again.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Oh, God. I would love to know more. At the same time, though, I never want him to break character.
Right.
And part of the reason I was surprised they wanted to make a book, I promise I'm only going to spend a few more minutes on this. How much of their audience would really translate to book reads? I'm sure they know their audience better than I do, but I would assume most of their audience is gamers. So the fact that Game Grumps has made video games makes sense. A book is interesting because it's difficult to sell books if you've ever tried. And
we have.
it's especially difficult to sell books if you're not operating within the traditional spheres of publishing and book audiences, I suppose. So he's essentially trying to convert Let's Play viewers into book buyers, and it's a book that is so far removed from their main content. It's not about games. It's not about TV. It's not about movies. It's not improv. Kind of is improv. Gonna go back to that. But I just like, first off, how do I want to phrase this? How young do you think the average reader of a Hardy Boys mystery is right now?
I would say high single digits, low double digits.
Do you think kids still read the Hardy Boys books?
Oh, you said now?
Now.
I would say the same thing, except like only like 1% of the
Right.
people do it. Yeah.
The average person who read a Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew novel is probably my mom's age. I have read them.
I think I read some Hardy Boys, but I don't think I ever read Nancy Drew.
I think I've read at least one Nancy Drew, couple Hardy Boys, because I'm a boy, and the Boxcar Children. For some reason, I lumped that in. Did they solve mysteries? I don't remember. They were homeless.
Oh no! I think I'm mistaking the Boxcar Children for the Hardy Boys.
Did the Boxcar Children solve mysteries?
Maybe.
Did anyone in the 60s not solve mysteries?
Oh my god, there are 140 titles in the Boxcar Children Mysteries series.
Well, that's because I think, I don't know if it's true of the Boxcar Children and the Hardy Boys, but I know like Nancy Drew is like more than one author.
Yes, this is more than the original. Were just 19. It looks like.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I can't remember if it was the Hardy Boys or the Boxcar Children that I read. Honestly, I think my brain has merged those two together.
Yeah. So a boxcar was a type of train car. Oh god. But yeah, so like I consider the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew to have been dated before I read them. Like I remember reading them and thinking like, "Oh, how quaint. They have typewriters." So I would imagine Game Grumps' audience skews kind of young. And so targeting a book at that age group makes sense. This is not targeted at that age group.
No.
This is targeted at people who have read the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew to really laugh at it, to really get the jokes. I think it's important to have that background. I've seen some of the reaction of their fans and some of the reviews for the book that are kind of negative, kind of just not getting it. Like, what are you wasting my time with? But if you've read those, it makes total sense. And the commitment to the bit, the part I love about it is that the character of Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills, which is the whole reason I've gone down this whole tangent about Game Grumps.
Yeah, we've gone deep in the crease. Is
because to understand this book, you must understand what they're trying to do with Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills, which is create a guy who, you know, is about our parents' age, who doesn't like kids, who is trying to write a book for kids, and all he can remember from his youth is like the Hardy Boys. And so he wrote a Hardy Boys spoof. And that's so perfect. And that's also such a weird business decision because, like, who's gonna get it? The book is way too crass. There's too much bad language for, like, the Hardy Boys audience, like the Hardy Boys age group. And also, I think the whole, like, Cecil H.H. Mills Game Grumps thing is going to fly right over the heads of our parents who don't know what a Let's Play is, who have never heard of Newgrounds. So there's this, like, sweet spot of 30-somethings.
Oh my god, are you trying to tell me they targeted me specifically?
I think they targeted you specifically. I think that's why we both liked this book, was because it was written specifically for us.
Oh my god.
And with that said, I am ready to let it go and start talking about the story now.
Oh my god.
Did I just break your mind?
You did. Okay, JJ and Valentine are brothers, but they're not brothers. They have a secret handshake, and they investigate ghosts, but they suck at it. And they've been hired by an eccentric writer who writes mystery novels to solve the mystery of the Grande Chateau.
What accent was that?
I don't know. they have a motorcycle, and they sold the kickstand to buy gas. And apparently, that's not an important plot point, but he'll bring it up a few more times. and then it will be an important plot point then.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about it. I'll tell you what. Hang on. Let me go grab my book.
Oh my god. So yeah, Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills, if you want to come on the podcast, feel free to do that. I'll write you a letter. You gave us a P.O. box we could send it to, so expect that in the mail sometime in the next 10 to 20 business days.
Okay, I'm back.
All right.
I've got the text in hand.
Wonderful. Now you know that they check into the Grand Chateau and they meet.
Yes.
They meet Trudy
De La Rosa.
De La Rosa. That's right. I was right. I got this. Who's like the smartest of the three, but I think the book's description said she's an idiot, but she's less of an idiot than they are.
Her name is Trudy De La Rosa. She's a wannabe detective type too, but honestly she's less of an idiot than the brothers. The three of them team up to solve a mystery that takes place in a snowy chateau up in the mountains. It gets more complicated around chapter 11, but now you've got the main gist of it.
Yes.
Oh, and can I say, I got the hardcover, and it is, from the art to the production of the book, a perfect simulation of a Hardy Boys hardcover. I love it. Go on.
Yeah, so they meet with mystery writer man whose name I forgot.
Oh, so this is why you wanted me to go.
Yeah, so he shows them around to the various areas of the Grand Chateau.
His name is Wallace P. Gross.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Wallace P. Gross. He keeps telling them he's really weird because he's like, there's the ballroom. That starts with the letter B. Here's the library. That starts with the letter L. So he's being weird. They run into his ex-wife. His ex-wife is the best, and I love her, and she's great. She's just an old crone who hates this guy, and she's awesome and wonderful. I think she, wishes Wallace were dead or threatens to kill him. And then I did not expect the way Chapter 1... I didn't expect Chapter 1 to end the way that it did, because I remember listening to the audiobook, and it's just like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then his head exploded. And that was the end. And they went, Chapter 2. And I was like, wait, hold on, what? They go to Wallace's study, and then Wallace is talking to him, and he's like, I'm being watched. You need to solve this mystery. Boom! His head explodes, and there's blood everywhere.
Now I fear my time is short, for I've put together everything and I can see clearly. There are a great many more mysteries to the Grand Chateau than you'd initially believe. And just as he finished his sentence, Wallace P. Gross's head exploded. And then can I tell you, so you listened to the audiobook, I read the hardcover. As you turn the page in the hardcover, the first thing you see is the drawing of the two brothers covered in blood.
Oh, wow.
Wiping blood from their eyes.
Writer blood, as they keep referring to it.
Writer blood, capital W, capital B, writer blood. But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like that's if you didn't see the Cecil H.H. Mills videos, if you didn't get a look at this guy's personality, they do their best because there's an introduction. I assume it's in the audiobook too.
Yes.
There's an introduction by Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills to get you familiar with what's going to happen here. So we should probably also mention too that JJ and Valentine, the two brothers who aren't brothers, are also hucksters. That they run a paranormal investigation thing / they just rob people sometimes.
Yes. JJ likes to pick locks and steal things, and Valentine likes to solve mysteries.
Yes.
That's their personality, actually.
Valentine is the quiet one. JJ, we'll get into JJ.
So...
And they of course look like Frank and Joe Hardy.
And they have a secret handshake. Did I mention that?
Yes, you did. As often as the book does.
Yes, and I don't know, does the hardcover book ever tell you to buy the audiobook? Because the audiobook tells you to buy the book. There's a point in the book where they have to do dance instructions, and he's like, I'm going to attempt to describe this to you. It's some feet and... some numbers. Okay, actually, I'm not going to try this. just buy the book.
I don't think it does ever tell you to buy the audiobook.
Yeah, there are parts in the audiobook he just straight up says, buy the paperback.
There are, though, obvious cues for the audiobook in the text. Like, the characters specifically do a voice or change their voice at certain points.
Oh my God.
And I just know he's...
So there's a character, the Madame. She's like
Madame Fournier, the hotelier.
Yes. And he gets to a point. Should I just go ahead and spoil it? You can cut this part out. He gets to a point, though, where he's like, I've realized that the voice that I've done for Madame Fournier has been really bad, so I'm just not going to do the accent anymore. Oh, yeah, spoiler, she's the one who's in this thing. She's in the tunnel here. That's the reveal of her.
Okay, no, he does. Okay, it sounds like I need to go get the audiobook, though. You are selling me on it, because no, the book takes itself a little more seriously. Just a little. Like the pictures. So what the book has, I guess, that the audiobook doesn't, is the pictures drawn in the style of those older books. Like, older books had picture plates they had to do because it was actually a physical printing press.
Right.
The artist, she's trying to mimic that style, and she does a really good job. But it's just modern enough that it looks like comical and weird. But yeah, we gotta keep going. We'll touch on the stylistic points as we get to them.
So first of all, they realized that his head exploded, then they heard glass breaking, so the shot came from inside the room, which is contrary to what the police detective who comes in says. He's like, oh, well, he was shot from outside the window, and now the killer is going to freeze to death on the mountain. Case closed, let's leave. And then he's like, oh shit, there's a blizzard, conveniently. So we're all trapped here for a couple days.
Yes, Deputy Park.
Deputy Park. I loved Deputy Park. He keeps threatening to karate chop people in the throat, and there's a payoff to that. When he actually did it, I laughed so hard. I was so happy that happened.
Dude, I thought of you the whole time that was going on, because, like, this is how you write.
This is how I write. This is probably why I gave it 5 stars.
And I just love, like, these are the kind of references they make. Like, Deputy Park is like, oh great, it's these two idiots. Hey man, we don't always screw things up. And Deputy Park's like, what about the old abandoned mill? That wasn't our fault. The Harborville bank heist? Anyone could have mistaken that old lady for a bank robber. What about the counterfeiters of Pirates Quay? But yeah, so Deputy Park has this, like, you know how every kid's cartoon has, like, one cop who works with the plucky young detectives.
I kept picturing Dewey from Scream.
He's very Dewey-esque, but he has more, like, raw confidence than Dewey. Like,
that's true.
He's similarly competent, but he lacks Dewey's humility. So yeah, Deputy Park is pretty sure the assassin will die, but everybody winds up trapped at the Grand Chateau in the blizzard. And now we have that kind of, like, classic Agatha Christie setup where one of you people staying in this fancy house did it, and J.J. Valentine's going to find out who.
So they go into the study to investigate, right? And they find, gasp, one of the bookcases is a secret passageway that is triggered by an Cecil H.H. Mills book when you pull on it. And in fact, during the book, he talks about how great Cecil H.H. Mills are. Like the characters are like, God, what a great author. And then he makes a note that the publishers were contractually obligated to leave that in. So they go into the secret passageway and they spot his ex-wife and a guy with a ponytail and sunglasses talking in the ballroom, who they find out very soon after is his publisher.
His agent.
Yes, his agent, that's right. They meet Trudy inside this passageway, and the three of them decide to team up, and they believe that His ex and his agent have conspired to murder him. And Ben, did you for 1 second believe it was these two? Because I did not.
No, I didn't believe it was them.
Did you know who it was from, like, the word go? Because I did.
No, I didn't, actually.
I did because it was the only other named character besides
That's
those
true.
two who I knew it wasn't.
I might admit something here. I wasn't super interested in the mystery.
That's fair, because that's not the point. It's not the point the way it is for, like, Agatha Christie.
I will say I liked that it was solvable, but I didn't put any thought into trying to solve the mystery because I wasn't sure if it was going to be that kind of book. So where I get a little questioning about who actually wrote the book is in the mystery part. Like, the dialogue sounds very Hansen-y to me. I think a lot of the jokes were written for sure by Aaron Hansen. Obviously, all the Cecil H.H. Mills stuff was for sure written by Aaron Hansen. But the plot itself is, for all the meta commentary around it about Cecil H.H. Mills not wanting to write a stupid kids book, it maintains the integrity of one of those old mystery books. And that's what I was kind of surprised to see. Because Aaron, from everything I've known in his other work, has never given any indication that this is the sort of thing he's into.
Right.
But it's well done. But yeah, so
they find that there are secret tunnels throughout the entire chateau. And also they learn that there's treasure in there mountains. It was originally put there by whatever his name was. His last name is Grande, because I remember laughing when Trudy's going over all of her notes because she's like the smart one who did research, and Valentine's like, wait, the Grand Chateau is named after a guy? And she's just like, yeah, obviously. Anyway, move on.
Grande is someone's name? It's like, yeah, it's Ariana Grande's last name. They're spelled exactly the same.
Ariana Grande buried some treasure in those mountains.
Ariana Grande's great-great-grandfather, or a relative of hers, did.
Ariana Grande, yeah, her distant ancestors buried gold in those mountains after becoming a weird recluse.
Maybe they can get her on guest grumps.
And he built a bunch of spying holes and secret tunnels and passageways, and you have to solve a bunch of puzzles and shit to get to his treasure or die trying.
Yeah, it's this Goonies-esque quest with all these like
I've never
riddles
watched
and
the
such.
Goonies.
What the hell?
A 1985 film.
This has come up before. How did you avoid it? I guess is my real question here.
I didn't know the Goonies was a thing until I was like 17.
Were you homeschooled?
No. Well, I mean, at 16 and 17, technically, I did do virtual learning, but, before that, no. No. I guess no one in my life or in my school gave a shit about the Goonies enough to talk about it. So I never heard of it.
That is shocking to me. I won't say the Goonies is overrated because I'm sure I've already upset everyone.
I won't say the Goonies is overrated, but you don't have to watch it because it's not as good as you think it is.
I won't say the Goonies is overrated, but it's very 80s.
Thanos was in that movie?
Josh Brolin, yeah. As the jock. Yeah, I did know that.
Wow. All right, let's get back to the Grand Chateau. And how there's a Goonies-esque labyrinth of puzzles and traps guarding a treasure, and also beware the monster at the end of the maze. What was the monster at the end of the maze, Ben?
I did know what the monster at the end of the maze would be. I did solve that mystery.
What was it?
No, I'm going to let the listener wonder until we get there.
Okay, fine. All right.
Everybody's looking for treasure, and they should beware the monster at the end of the maze.
So I think this is where they hear some digging down there, and like Trudy's looking around a room. She can't see shit. She's like, "You need to get me out of here. There's someone else down here." And they pull her out, and there's a hand on her ankle, and they they manage to, like, get away, but they don't know who is trying to get them. And they seal this stone door, essentially condemning the person inside to death, because it can't be opened manually, right? Is that where we're at? I think that's where we're at. This is a little more free form than I'm used to. I didn't take notes for the plot. They think that was Thad down there because they're convinced that it's Thad and his ex who are conspiring. And they're like, all right, we trapped him down there. We've got... Oh my god, I skipped the part where they tried to, like, break into Thad's room and he was downstairs eating and Valentine had to sit down and, like, try to pitch him a book to distract him. And He's pitching him these awful books.
You've skipped a few things.
Yeah, okay. But here's the important part, is he pitches a book about a woman with 3 boobs, and that catches Thad's attention. Alright then. What am I saying?
You're skipping all around. That's my problem. Like, I'm trying to follow you in the book, and you're just bouncing all over the book.
It all kind of blended together in my mind.
Yeah, you went...
I was ready to go for Act 2, where they make the accusation.
Yeah, I know, because you skipped all of Act 1. You skipped 6 chapters.
Alright, Ben, let's lean on you here. What's going on?
Okay, so I guess I should start from where you departed from the narrative. After they find the people talking, they wind up eating breakfast the next morning, and that's when Trudy comes to them and says, like, so, you know, what are we going to do about all this mystery? And
the mystery is thick in the air. There's some mystery rubbed on the handle. Okay, go on.
Yes, and so that's when, yes, the Hardley boys.
There's also a Futurama, the scary door, where there's someone who rubbed mystery. There's some mystery in the sheets because they weren't cleaned. So there's a... Anyway, go on.
But yeah, so at breakfast the next day, after they had initially discovered the tunnel, Trudy finds the boys and she talks to them about the mystery, and they decide she will be inducted into the Ghost Hunters Adventure Club as a new recruit. She is not allowed to learn the secret handshake, but she is privy to the Ghost Hunters Adventure Club field manual, of which JJ carries a stack with him everywhere he goes.
She also raises a good point, where she's like, I did all the work, you guys should be working for me, and their response was, we're the only 2 people stupid enough to listen to you, so you need us.
I especially enjoyed, as a self-published author myself, when he hands her the book, she goes, the Ghost Hunters Adventure Club field manual? Yes, I had it printed at a vanity press, and bought enough to get a wholesale markdown. There's a short quiz at the end of the chapter, as well as a word jumble. This is where I thought of you. This is how you write.
It is how I write.
Yes.
Big fan.
So this is when they decide to tail the perps, because what you had forgotten a very important clue, Mr. I paid attention to the mystery, is that Wallace P. Gross's manuscript for the book he was supposed to be working on is missing. And if they could find the manuscript, which may contain clues as to where the treasure is, then they would know who killed him. Because presumably the motive for killing him was that he was close to the treasure and they wanted to get it before him. So they killed him, stole his manuscript, and now they're trying to figure out where the treasure is. So this is why Trudy winds up following people all day. And this is why they eventually have to do the pitch, because they need to get into Thad's room.
All right, and I think we're up to date. And then they found the tunnels. They trapped a man down there.
They did, but I wanted to, let me flip through my book. This is the downside of reading books like a normie.
Yeah, this is the downside of an audiobook where I just took a little smattering of notes.
So what I wanted to mention was the first, shining through of Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills into the text is Trudy's going through the letters in Thad's room, and she finds the correspondences between Wallace P. Gross, Thad Newberry, and some publishing company called Bradford and Bradford. JJ clenched his fist. Bradford and Bradford, those dirty rats. Never have I met a more dishonest and unkind publishing house.
Yes. And then he said that the publishers were contractually obligated to leave that in.
So that's when, like, JJ just totally breaks character to speak Cecil H.H. Mills' words, which I loved.
It was great.
And again, I feel like the appeal of that, just the more he does it, the more people he's going to lose. Like, I feel like a lot of people just are not going to get what he's trying to do. But, Aaron, I'm glad you wrote this book for me. That's all I can say. So the whole pitch, which you kind of glossed over, it's like, yes, he does eventually sell the guy on the script with 3 boobs. Or, I'm sorry, on the manuscript with 3 boobs. But what happens before that is a whole conversation where he presents ideas to the publisher that are like supposedly good ideas with artistic merit, including the very book we're reading right now.
Right.
But at first he pitches like the great American novel and a bunch of other like cliche literary things that the publisher's like, no, that's boring. No, nobody reads those. No, you need to sex it up. And we assume that that's like Cecil H.H. Mills trying to pitch to his own publisher. So I enjoyed that immensely.
Now are we at where I said I was at?
I'm sorry. I'm just reading. After the pitch, Valentine, they're like, how did it go? And Valentine's like, I think I just got an advance for a 3-book series. And then they mentioned that Wallace and Thad and their publisher, Bradford and Bradford, were in a heated go-between for the better part of 3 years over a past-due manuscript. JJ scoffed. Bradford and Bradford, those buffoons. They wouldn't know true art if it punched them in the nose. I guess JJ is kind of the weakest thing in the book for me. How did you feel about JJ before we go much further?
I liked JJ, Ben. He had an arc at the end.
Okay, I did. Yes, he did have an arc. I shouldn't say I don't like JJ as a character. I think JJ gets old a little fast. JJ is kind of this like joke a minute type guy, which we've talked about on the podcast before. I'm not surprised to hear it didn't bother you, as you like the movie Airplane. And I don't. Because I'm just getting caught up in like how stupid the thing I saw was, whereas you were just like, you know what, that one didn't work for me, but look, there's 5 more. Let's just keep going. More jokes. One of them will land. More jokes. JJ got a little old for me. It did not ruin the book for me. I still enjoyed. JJ did get a few laughs from me, but I liked especially that JJ was the mouthpiece. But did you catch which Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills book is on the bookshelf? Because this is where, after they find the letters that are kind of incriminating between Thad and Wallace P. Gross, this is when they decide to go back into the tunnel for the second time. So we are kind of catching up to you now.
I do not remember. It wasn't Cerberus from on high because those got all burned.
Yes, it was Cerberus from on high.
It was.
So this.
Oh my god.
Yes. Let me read a passage to you.
He has a copy of Cerberus from on high.
Which was the book you pulled again? That old novel by Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills. You know, the one that was way ahead of its time? Valentine brushed the cover of a weighty tome, unveiling the name of the extraordinarily intelligent and extremely handsome author. Cerberus from on high, Valentine read. What a phenomenal piece of art, said JJ.
Yep.
So yes, Wallace P. Gross has what may be the only copy of Cerberus from on high. Oh my
god. JJ should steal that.
JJ should steal that. He should. Is the story outside of the text that no one has read Cerberus from on High and he can't reproduce it? Or that he can reproduce it, but no one will publish it?
Well, we're going to get to a weird part of the book, but let's finish up with this Act 2. So they go in the tunnels again, and they find the guy digging, and all that stuff that I talked about like 20 minutes ago. Just rewind this podcast, go download it a second time, listen to it. So the next day, they're like, okay, we trapped Thad down there in the tunnels. He's going to freeze to death, so we got to get a move on this whole accusation thing. Trudy, go try and see if you can get his ex-wife to, like, invite you into their conspiracy, their little cabal to get this treasure. And so Trudy's, like, letting the Marcella, that's right, Marcella, that, like, she's letting her know, like, we saw you in the ballroom, and, like, we know that you guys were saying that you just need to lay low for a couple days and this will all blow over. And I could tell right then and there that she was unwillingly or unknowingly trying to proposition a threesome.
What?
Because she's telling Marcella that she, like, wants to join in, and Marcella is, like, horrified.
Oh my god,
That's what I got from it, because Marcella open palm slaps the shit out of Trudy.
Wait a minute.
And tells her to stay out of her personal life.
Okay, wait a minute. I remember the slap. I do not remember this sexual tension. Hang on.
That's how I took it, because I realized that the thing between Thad and Marcella was not that they killed Wallace P. Gross, but it was that they were having an affair.
Listen, I know things you might already know, and I know things you definitely don't know. I know you and Thad have been in league, but I think I have something I can add to the team if you... Oh my god, you're right.
Yes! Right?
Oh my god, you're right.
I laughed so hard because I was like, I think she doesn't realize it, but she's trying to interject herself in their sex life.
Yeah, and so the secret between Marcella and... Oh god, okay. Wow. So I had figured out that Marcella and Thad were having an affair, which I guess isn't really an affair because they're both single.
Yeah, they're both single.
It's just something they were trying to keep from her ex. So I knew that was going to be the twist, that she was going to, for whatever reason, I guess I had already decided in my mind that Marcella thought that Trudy was trying to, like, blackmail her or something. But now that you mention it, I understand that the awkwardness and the tension in the scene were related to something entirely different. And that my pure innocent mind just did not go there.
You're an innocent.
Goodness.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. That was what I got from it.
Yeah, and so the crack of the open-handed slap brings the entire hotel lobby and restaurant to silence, and that is when JJ decides that it is his time to shine. There's only one way to wrap this mystery up, and we are exactly halfway through the book, almost.
Yeah.
And so, it's not going to wrap up.
It's very obviously the Act 2.
So, yes, now you can explain what JJ does.
So, yeah, JJ, he's like, gather round, everyone, gather round. And he starts presenting his evidence. The usual thing of, like, the guy got shot and then the glass broke. So my brother and I did some investigating, and also Trudy definitely was not manning the desk like she was supposed to. So yeah, the three of us were doing some investigating, and we found that this bookcase is a secret passage. Whoosh! Oh shit. That was the right book, right? And he just starts pulling all the books down. The bookcase isn't opening. He's like, well, you'll have to take my word. There's a secret passage behind this bookcase, and that's where he was shot from. And who shot him? That's right. It was his ex-wife, and also Thad. We saw them talking in the ballroom. And where is Thad? Well, we trapped him inside of these tunnels where he probably froze to death. Don't mention that part. And then Thad walks in the door like, oh, man, I slept in way too late, or I'm hungover or something. What's going on here? Yeah, their entire accusation just collapses.
They do start making interesting points to a certain extent, and Marcella eventually has to admit that she is engaged in an affair, and she breaks down in tears and leaves the room in embarrassment, and everyone looks at JJ like he is a monster.
Yep.
And Deputy Park orders them to stop any kind of investigating and stop spying on people. And if he catches them doing anything they're not supposed to be doing, that'll be the end. And that brings us to the famous Chapter 10, the interlude.
So this one is weird because he speaks directly to you. He tells you what the theme is.
He being
the theme is that children
Dr.
are idiots.
Cecil H.H. Mills.
Yeah, he being Dr. Cecil H.H.
Mills.
Mills. So he says that kids suck, and then he's talking about like how he's typing about himself, and he's like in a secluded area, I think up in the mountains as he's writing this book, and there's a person at the edge of the woods.
Oh my god, I loved that.
I was like, what in the hell?
Like he's going insane.
And sometimes he'll hear them knocking at the door.
The only people I've talked to so far are the mailman, the gentleman at the corner down the way, and the sock puppet I created for whenever I feel the overwhelming need to scream at someone. There is one other person, though. I see him infrequently and always at night. He stands at the edge of the woods on my property, just far enough in the brush to obfuscate his face and body. He doesn't move, even when I shine a flashlight on him. But when the light bounces back at me, I always see a flash of steel. Is he holding something in his hand? Why does he stare at me? Is he staring through me? Sometimes I wake up at night to a light scratching on the windowsill at my bedroom, metal against glass. I'm too paralyzed with fear to move, so I just lie there and listen. The scraping turns to tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Eventually the tapping becomes a whispered voice. Cecil, come outside, it says. Come, pay for your sins. It's easy, Cecil. You just have to unlock your door and come outside. Anyway, reader, I'm sure your time is as valuable as mine.
Yeah, he's just like, he just moves on and never comes back. I'm like, wait, hold on.
I loved that.
What was going on?
I loved that. It was so dark and like creepypasta-y, and I loved it. I loved that little, like, he's just going insane in the woods. Like I said, I have no idea how much broad appeal this Cecil H.H. Mills stuff has, but like, I will read every book they write if they're all like this. I love this book. This whole chapter I really enjoyed. The only thing I kind of like, it's kind of weak and wishy-washy, is the fact that JJ calls Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills and asks for advice on how to solve the mystery, as Cecil H.H. Mills is the one writing it. And I think that's supposed to be another like window into Cecil H.H. Mills is just insane. Talking to his imagined characters. But it's a little odd because like it comes up again in the text. I don't think it should have come up again. I think it should have stayed in this interlude. But yeah, JJ will again try to call Cecil H.H. Mills, and it's like too much fourth wall breaking. I think Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills has an affinity for JJ because I think JJ is the most Aaron Hansen character in the book. And that's why I said that's the thing about the Game Grumps episodes, that they're just not all gems because of that improv style. And that's the thing with JJ's dialogue too, is they're not all gems. Some of them are truly, truly funny, but when JJ's just like speed throwing everything at you, it is like, JJ, eventually somebody would punch you in the face. You're very obnoxious.
Or karate chop him in the throat. Much more likely. I think Deputy Park does threaten to do that to him. He does. I think on more than one occasion. Okay, let's see. So, I said these guys suck. The theme is that kids suck. There's a random person at the edge of the wood. And then I go straight to, how do they know you can't literally cut a rug? So I skipped over a lot. I think that Trudy realizes that Wallace P. Gross, he he was giving them clues, and he also wrote a book about a guy who predicts his own death. And so he... Right? Am I not mistaken here?
The first clue he gave them, as he was showing them around, was that in the ballroom, which starts with a B, you two could consider cutting a rug sometime. And Trudy realizes that that may have been a clue because he wrote that book where somebody predicted their own death. And they go down to the ballroom to investigate the cut a rug clue, which literally any person who is as aware that they are in a mystery as these would realize that to cut a rug has a double meaning. And one meaning...
Yeah, they start dancing at first, and then they're like, oh, isn't this where they find half of that letter?
Yeah.
Marcella, she mentioned during the accusation that she was given half a letter by her ex-husband. And they find the other half here in the ballroom, and they're like, all right, JJ, you gotta go apologize. And I love that apology scene because he's trying to apologize, but it's obviously not super sincere. He's like holding a dumb fedora, as is described in the book. And finally, like, he's like, I'm trying to apologize, you old crone, and they just start insulting each other, and finally she's like, you know what, you're not that bad, kid, and...
You know what, kid, you're all right.
Yeah. It's a cipher, and I love this part because Marcella was like, you know, it was fun being married to Wallace for a little bit, because, like, he gave these little fun mysteries to solve, but it was for everything, and eventually it was like, to get a grocery list, I had to solve a complex cipher to figure out what he wanted from the store. I love that, Ben.
Okay, you love that he took it too far.
He took it way too far. And Marcella is my favorite character at this point.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that. I think Marcella's turn was a little too sharp for me. It works for the story, but...
She has an arc, Ben! God!
She doesn't, though. I think that's the thing. She has a point A and a point B, and she takes a straight line to get there. It's fine. I don't think they should have spent more time developing Marcella. It didn't occur to me to think of her as much of a character at all. What I loved from that sequence of events was when they were still in the ballroom and JJ couldn't figure out what the clue was supposed to mean. And he's like, one of these must open a secret passage. And he just starts ripping like lighting fixtures out of the wall.
Yeah, so JJ leaves with a clue on where to find the manuscript, and then he gets a wallop on the noggin. He wakes up inside of, it turns out to be the shed, but he calls it a kill room. That's where they put Wallace's body after he died. And there's a phone, and I love that he's trying to call out, and as he's typing with his nose, like he's desperately trying to like get the right numbers. He forgot that you have to dial 9 to get out. But he does eventually get a hold of the reception guy, who I just wrote down he absolutely sucks.
Well, yeah, so
What, Steve?
Trudy got fired both for not being at her post and for spying on the hotel guests. She was replaced with the only other teenager in the hotel who was on a skiing vacation with his family. He doesn't really want to be doing it, so he's just sort of sitting there doing a half-assed job.
Yeah, he's like, hey, what's the protocol for when someone calls you and tells you that they're trapped in a room somewhere and they're going to be killed? Like, do we do anything with that? And they're like, that must be JJ.
So yeah, that brings us to a chapter entitled The Fight Scene.
Yeah. They realize JJ must be in the shed. It's the only place that he could be in. And they go in there, they find him, and then they're attacked by what I could not picture as anything other than Groundskeeper Willie.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say Groundskeeper Willie. Now, he is drawn in the book as like a silhouetted figure, and he does not look like Groundskeeper Willie at all, but I still chose to imagine him as Groundskeeper Willie.
Right?
Yes.
If elected mayor, my first act will be to kill the whole lot of you and burn your turn to cinders. Like so. I know it's on.
Oh, God. Anywho.
So they have a big fight scene ending with, I think they hit him in the back of the head with a shovel?
I can get you home, but you have to do exactly as I...
Like, they just destroy this guy after he manhandles them. I mean, this guy's a big...
Yeah, oh yeah, the
burly
dude's
dude.
huge. And that's a big point because he was just kind of brute forcing his way through the puzzles. Like, you were supposed to figure out these mechanisms and like it'll lift a door, and he could just lift the door. Trudy hits him with a shovel, and then she says something like, "Is he dead?" And they're like, "No." And then she goes to hit him again to like finish him off, and they're like, "No, whoa, Trudy, no."
Now, they did say that, they said something like, "We'll find the killer." And it's like, how do you know the killer wasn't the groundskeeper?
Yeah, he's looking...
He just tried to choke you guys to death.
I thought there was a reason they didn't immediately suspect him of just being guilty of the whole thing, but you're right.
Yeah, that was the one thing that was like, okay, they read the script or something.
Well, they do have a hotline to the author. He has read this. It is the Robin Hood Men in Tights thing.
Someone's opening fire on them from the roof, and they find the manuscript, and they also find an entrance to one of those tunnels that wasn't sealed off, but they can't pry it open, so JJ pulls out the motorcycle kickstand that they say they sold for gas, and that was told to us twice is not important. And Cecil H.H. Mills says that he lied to us. Also, they're yelling serpentine, serpentine. You know, run in that pattern so that they can't get an easy shot on you. So they're smarter than Rickon Stark. Boom. Got it. So they get inside the tunnel, and then they have a weird out-of-place argument where Valentine's like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. I'm done with this. No one said we were going to get shot at. This is bullshit. I'm out of here. Maybe not that last part about the bullshit. But yeah, JJ and he have an argument, and Valentine he go their separate ways until Valentine runs into the shooter, and it turns out to be, and I'm going to spoil this the way that the audiobook did, Madame Fournier is going to be the killer, but that's not a spoiler because Madame Fournier! Ah!
So the title of the chapters is kind of funny. So chapter 16 is titled The Chapter Where You Find Out Who Did It. And then chapter 17 is titled A Reminder That Sometimes the Media Lies to You, and I've elected to teach you this life lesson because this is the actual chapter where you find out who did it.
So JJ and Valentine, they end up making up while they have a gun held to them, and they solve a bunch of puzzles to find the treasure. Do you want to go in depth on those puzzles?
No.
Or I don't really think it's that important.
No.
Yeah. Now, Ben, tell us, what is the monster at the end of the maze?
The monster at the end of the maze is greed. Yes, you were the real monster all along, and your lust for treasure. This whole thing was built to ensnare the greedy, to force them to waste their lives and eventually die in the pursuit of riches that they did not need and do not deserve. And that is represented perfectly in Madame Fournier, who dies.
No, she doesn't.
I know. That would have been a better ending.
She opens up... No, this is JJ's arc. She opens up the chest. There's nothing there. The room starts to collapse. And JJ... His arc was like... A JJ from before would have wanted to see her die. But the JJ of now wants to see her be brought to justice. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's your arc.
It's a fine...
he saves
It's a fine
her.
arc. He could still, like, try to save her. But you can do the, like...
But then they don't pay off the karate chop. Because then she's like, oh my god, you saved me, thank you. I'll remember you when I shoot you in the face. And then Officer Park karate chops her in the throat. And
Wait.
I laughed.
She survived that?
Yes! She goes to jail. After JJ saves her and then Officer Park karate chops her.
I don't know if you'd survive being karate chopped in the throat.
You do in a mystery novel aimed at young adults, but really it's aimed at our
I was
age.
going to say, just a pro tip, kids. Don't karate chop your friends in the throat.
Oh my god, I'm no longer 30 as of a few days ago of recording.
Yeah, well, welcome.
But I think that I think that, like, since last year didn't count, we just do a mulligan. I'm 30 again, right?
I'd dig it.
So yeah, and the day is saved, and they decide to all get together to go on more adventures. I'd read a sequel.
Yeah, they did tease at the end that, like, Trudy wasn't going to come with them, but then she changes her mind and comes with them.
And then it ends with Dr. Mills reading a bunch of letters about how sad his life was and is.
The letters are
like,
amazing.
And one of the letters was like, how can you live with yourself? My dad worked for, what was it?
Bradford and Bradford.
Bradford and Bradford. My dad worked for Bradford and Bradford, and your book destroyed that publishing house, and now he's out of a job. Our life is in tatters, and it's all your fault. How do you live with yourself? And Dr. Mills is like, my life sucks.
No, Dr. Mills grants that the child has a legitimate grievance with him, and on the eve of his 18th birthday, he will give him his home address, and they can duel with a weapon of his choosing.
Yes, that's right.
Oh god. No, I love the whole shtick. I think there's a question of, does the book stand on its own? So I've read a lot of reviews because I was really curious what the perception of this book would be from specifically the Game Grumps audience. And I can't say for sure who's really from Game Grumps and who isn't. It seems like a lot of people bought it because they heard it was a funny comedy book, and those people tended to like it less than people who seemed to be in on it from the get-go. I can't really say a lot about that because you got Game Grumps superfans who are going to like everything they do. People who aren't Game Grumps superfans are more likely to give it an honest shake. I could tell you, as somebody who's kind of middle of the road on Game Grumps and not a big fan of silly comedy books in general, which I would say this is kind of a sillier comedy book, I did like it quite a bit. I think it probably does benefit greatly if you have seen the Cecil H.H. Mills videos that the Game Grumps have put out. I don't think they're necessary, but I think you should know what's going on, like what the bit is, to fully enjoy it. Otherwise, I don't think it stands on its own. Yeah, if I guess if you're 30 years old, know who the Game Grumps are, and have read a Hardy Boys book, this might work for you.
It's very specific.
It is. I feel like that's the main problem with the book, is that it works eminently well for me.
Maybe not so much for others.
I don't know who they thought it was for, but I get the impression that Aaron and maybe others, if they worked on the book, wrote a book for themselves that they thought was funny.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
In this case, I think that pays off. I think that's good for them. I enjoyed it, and I think they probably figured, you know what, hey, if some people want to come along on the ride with us, we wrote what we wanted to read, and here it is. And I think there's a lot of merit to it. I think as a multimedia project, I'm always kind of interested in those. Like I talked about a little bit on that Five Nights at Freddy's episode with Shy. I gave that book a higher rating than I would have given it if it were just a book. But as part of a multimedia storytelling endeavor, I think it worked really well. And I think that's what this is. I think as part of a multimedia storytelling endeavor, Dr. Cecil H.H. Mills is one of my favorite characters.
Yep. I'll agree with that. All right. Anything else? I think that was a good wrap-up.
Yeah, nothing from me.
All right. If anyone actually reads along with us, where are we reading next month?
I am told we're reading Dune Messiah. I forgot.
Well, in that case, I mean, I could swap it out for something
let's read
else.
Dune Messiah. I'm looking at it right now. I'm turning to look at it on my bookshelf, and it's calling to me. It wants to be read.
And then, I guess for the rest of the month, because this is a 5-week month, August is.
Oh, God.
And this episode only took up 1 week. which is not what I was expecting. I was expecting 2. We're going to try and talk about Count Zero, and I'm going to make Ben talk about the Witcher books, and then we'll just kind of wing it from there.
I've read 2.
All right, cool. You're going to talk about them.
Did I read 2 or 3? I can't remember. So we're off to a
well. You
to a good start.
better remember.
Yeah. I've definitely read Blood of the Elves, and the one that comes after Blood of the Elves.
Oh boy, this is going to be a hard prep for you.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we going on the Twitters?
You've
And buying us coffee.
Buying us coffee, doing Twitters. Both of those are at WAB Pod, but on different websites. One is Twitter/WAB Pod, and the other is buymeacoffee.com/WAB Pod. You can also check out our blog for additional show notes, commentary, and now Goodreads reviews, at least by me. I don't know if Nate is catching up on his homework.
Eventually.
But
someday.
yeah, we're...
Go to my Goodreads and read them, and then eventually go to my blog and then reread them.
Yeah, but yeah, check it out. And of course, if you want to help the show, best thing you could do, please share us on social media. Tell other book fans about us if you think we would be tolerable to them. You can even hate watch it or hate listen to it. If you hate us and you just want to like find other reasons to hate us, you can do that too. Leave a review. Leave a negative review.
You should start. JJ and Valentine are brothers, but not brothers.
I should start. I've just spoken for 40 minutes. I was looking forward to resting my voice.
Oh my god, it has another 15 minutes. Oh my god.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Who's editing
JJ
this?
and Valentine. JJ and